As we mentioned, Governor Little has had a busy pen so far this session, signing more than 225 bills into law. Of the nearly 600 introduced by lawmakers this session, a little more than half, about 325, have made it all the way to the governor's office. All session, we've tried to take you through the process, and you know, Schoolhouse Rock does a decent job of explaining how a bill becomes law. But what happens after that? Joe Paris plays the curious kid in this analogy in the 208 version of what happens after a bill becomes law.
While lawmakers are in limbo to kick off the week, the quiet Capitol still has lots of work going on. Just check out the Idaho Secretary of State's office.
Really interesting being in this new role. A key part of the Secretary of State's office is being the secretary to the state. And so all the official actions of the governor, all the official actions of the legislature come here. We're the record keeper, keeping track of all of that.
Secretary of State Phil McGrain is working through his first year in office. Alongside his team, work is done here to officially get laws on the books after lawmakers pass it and Governor Little signs off.
Once the governor signs it, that's when a law becomes official, and it's for our job from that point on to take it and make sure that we can notify the world, get the session laws out, make sure that all the lawyers, the judges, everybody else know about what the changes to expect.
The governor's staff works closely with the Secretary of State team, and that includes hand-delivering fresh laws. Secretary of State team members like Lisa Mason make sure everything is accurate and recorded.
Once I receive these and work my way through them, I'll transfer this information onto the back of this bill and I'll assign it a chapter number. Every year, these will be published after the legislature adjourns, and they're all the laws that were passed for the year.
And they just get put out in books like that?
Yep, every year.
Even in the age of incredible technology, Secretary McGrain and his team are focused on pen to paper and then digital recording as a second step. Each detail is carefully confirmed for accuracy.
You can see everywhere from Speaker of the House, President of the Senate, Clerk of the House. So this is because this is a House bill. This is the process it's gone through. Part of what Lisa is doing also, though, is verifying. So the governor's signature, but you'll note the timestamp. So the governor has exactly 5 days, excluding Sundays, to sign a bill. And so part of her process, too, is to make sure it was lawfully processed.
Hard copies of the session paperwork are kept in a special portfolio, and they're also added in print to Idaho Code. Books are newly printed every few years for practical purposes, but a special insert is always added quickly into the physical session law books just to make sure that there's a placeholder.
We just had a meeting last week with the Idaho Code Commission, which is the group that oversees the dissemination of all these new laws and the information. And so it's our job to both digitize that. We're also the enforcer to make sure the timetables in terms of whether a signature was put on there timely or not, or if a bill becomes law without the governor's signature. We process all that information, but make sure that the legislature did all it was supposed to, that the governor did what he was supposed to, and then make sure to get the information out to the public.
As times change and evolve, the core principle remains. Lawmakers make laws, and someone needs to make sure those are tracked, maintained, and published.
There is still a lot of history to this building, that we are processing laws today just as we were when we became a state in 1890. I think that's one of the interesting aspects, and so many people, including the new legislators who've come on board, are just learning that process and each of the steps along the way. And it is quite a journey that a bill has to take from its initial idea and inception to make it through that entire process. This is it. We're the ones keeping track of it. We're the ones validating, making sure that it is the governor's signature and that everything is official by the time it takes full effect.
So here shortly after 5 o'clock on Monday, there's still plenty of paperwork on Governor Little's desk. So no news right now on some of the controversial bills that Brian was just talking about, but the governor basically has all week to consider it, really up till Wednesday, Thursday. It'll be interesting, though, because if he does make a veto, well, then maybe the session doesn't wrap up this week. Now, if all things go according to plan, if I talk to lawmakers, if that's their plan I'm talking about, the governor would sign off on everything and then they would wrap up basically on Thursday.
And usually each legislative session, there's not a whole lot of vetoed bills out there. And that being said, there's not a whole lot of vetoed bills that are overturned that we've seen already this session. So we've seen 2 bills vetoed, 1 overturned, but then we got that one. There's a whole lot to it.
Yeah. But there's still a little bit of work that's going on over in the big building downtown.
But they're waiting to see what happens with the gentleman on the second floor.
Which is interesting, though, because if for some reason he did veto something, lawmakers do have the ability to call themselves back now. So I was interested if that would change the circumstances. It doesn't.
It doesn't. All right. Thanks, Joe.
Yep.